Perfect. So let's get started, Eugene. Thanks for a warm introduction and the opportunity to be part of your webinar program. We're happy to update the folks who found time to join us during this lunch hour about the government funding programs that are available for-profit businesses today. Although we will mostly focus today on the businesses located in Ontario, there will be several programs, several federal programs that any business in Canada can apply for, and I will highlight those programs. Quickly about our agenda today, we'll start with a bit of an introduction about fair grant writing in our journey. Then we'll look at the different types of government funding programs, because it's necessary to understand what exactly you are signing up for, and it may not necessarily be a grant. We'll talk about a few success stories of our clients and not only our clients, and then we'll dive deep into the purposes and the reasons why the government funding is available for Canadian businesses, and we'll look deeper into most popular programs that are available today. Some of them are not available, but will be soon available, so we'll talk about those as well. And then we'll talk a little bit about success factors, if you will, how you apply for the funding, how you make sure that your application stands out, and then we'll conclude with questions and answers. So by all means, please feel free to write your questions anytime during the presentation, and we'll answer them at the end. Quickly about fair grant writing, we've been recognized experts in government funding applications since 2013. We're proud that we've secured millions of dollars in government funding for our clients over these years and helped them to either grow their businesses or significantly improve their productivity, their skills, and so forth. Just like most of our clients, we are very focused on quality assurance and have a process in place for ensuring the quality of the application and maximizes the chances for approval, and employ top-level business writers experienced in business, finance, as well as professional editors. But enough talking about us, so let me first introduce you to the world of government funding. There are different types of government funding, not just grants. Grants is obviously something that most of you have heard of and most of you like. Why? Because it's non-repayable funding. That means you don't have to pay the grant back. And the grants, like all other government funding programs, they are not available just because your business exists. You cannot apply for the grant. You have to have a specific purpose that matches the purpose that matches the purpose of the program. And we'll talk about the purposes later on. But just as an example, you may have a skills training needs in your company. There are grants to cover skills training. There are grants to cover new hires. There are grants to cover marketing and so forth. So you have to always have that purpose in order to qualify for the grant or for the loan or for any other government funding type. Now, government loan is another type of a government funding. Unlike commercial loans, the government loans are completely interest-free. Typically, they support large-scale expansion projects, such as construction of the plant or expansion of the R&D facility. So those are massive projects that last typically a couple of years and result in huge employment creation. Those may qualify for the support under government loan programs. Tax credits, another type of government funding. It's non-repayable funding, so you don't have to pay the tax credit back. However, the key difference between the grant and a tax credit is that tax credit is the retroactive form of funding. That means that you get the money after you've completed your project or after your fiscal year end. Whereas for the grants, you have to apply first, wait for approval, and then you can start your project. Now, there are also temporary COVID incentives. In fact, there's no just one specific kind of type. Under those temporary COVID incentives, there's a combination of grants, loans, tax credits, government procurement programs. So it's all lots of different federal and provincial opportunities However, most of those programs will expire in June 2021. So if you haven't applied for any means, apply right away. A couple of words now about what our clients have been able to achieve. For example, we secured $3 million interest-free loan for an aerospace manufacturer located in Vaughan, Ontario, and over $300,000 in non-repayable grants for a metal fabrication plant in Kitchener to support its expansion. However, this is not the limit. I love this success story because, first of all, it's a relatively recent one, and secondly, because it's the company that managed to combine several different grants, loans, tax credits, as well as commercial loans from the Canadian corporations to get to 100 million. Right? This is a fantastic success story. Unfortunately, not our client, but I have to admit. But I wanted to show you that there's pretty much no limit to the amount of how much you can get from the government. The key question, though, is whether you have like enough projects or enough scale of the projects to be in need of such an enormous amount of funding. Something to think about, definitely. Now, in terms of the purposes, these are the top purposes the government is, investing money into, and it's actually, it may sound a little bit strange because we have all those budget deficits, federal budget deficit, Ontario budget deficit, Quebec deficit, and so forth, and those deficits were in place a long time before COVID, and of course now the budget deficit situation is much worse. So the question is, why on earth would the government provide grants or even interest-free loans at its own expenses to the for-profit businesses? Like, at first, it sounds illogical, but if you think about it, the government considers this grants and loans as the investment into improvement of the taxpayers, right? Because the companies are taxpayers. Eventually, in the end, the government wants to increase employment and collect more taxes from employees of the companies and from the corporate and other taxes like HST. So for the government, these programs are incentives to, again, improve and grow the businesses in the community. And typically, the government funds the following projects. First of all, productivity improvement, including equipment purchasing and upgrade of equipment. Typically, it's for manufacturing. However, sometimes certain tech companies can also apply for certain equipment funds, like if it's a biotech, for example. Skills training, another big category, a huge issue right now for all employers to find the right people. Now, instead of finding the right people, what you can do, you can hire somebody who's not that right, if you will, and apply for the training grant, and the government will compensate the portion of the training costs to bring that person to your standards. Hiring, one of the most popular and straightforward purposes of the funding. If you hire somebody, especially under the age of 30, there's a good chance there's a hiring that person. Export business development, a huge focus of the Canadian government nowadays is on helping Canadian businesses enter the new export markets, especially outside the United States. 75% of our economy is tied to the US exports. The government wants to diversify, so there are special grants to help Canadian companies diversify their export sales. Software implementation and training, another important category. Research and development, probably the largest purpose by the dollars allocated to this category. And last but not least, business expansion, such as construction or expansion of the plant or research and development facility. Now, keep in mind that the government does not provide operational funding. So your labor, materials, subcontractors, so you somehow have to find the money from other sources, commercial sources, to support it. The government only invests money into something that is out of your normal course of operations. Now let's dive a little bit deep into each or most of those purposes, and I'll show you a few programs under each purpose. Canada Job Grant is the number one and most popular skills training grant. First of all, it works coast to coast. The name of the program may be different from province to province, but the concept is the same. If you are a for-profit company of any size, even if you have one employee, not the owner though, there are some limitations about using the training grants for training owners. But if you even have one employee who's not the owner, you can qualify. Any industry, any age of the company, startup or existing company, doesn't really matter. If you have third-party training needs, the government can provide between 50% to 83% of the training expenses, up to a maximum of $10,000, or $15,000 if you hire an unemployed individual and they create a job. There's a couple of nuances, mostly regional nuances about the program that I won't overload you with the information, but what's important, especially those who are listening to us from Ontario, is that a few years ago the program was changed, and unfortunately software training provided by the vendor is not eligible. That means if you are, say, buying an ERP system and then you get the training from the same ERP company, unfortunately this does not qualify. However, if you buy that ERP system from a vendor and then get the training from somebody else, that scenario will qualify. So that's something to remember specifically when it comes to software grants, software and software training, because those type of grants were very popular. East Laundry Foundation AIM program is another popular program for skills training. It's only for manufacturers though, that are located in Southern Ontario and small to medium size. Unlike the previous program, this program not only compensates you a portion of the third-party trainers' fees, but it also pays a portion of the salaries and wages of your employees while on training. As a matter of fact, it provides between 25 and 50% of the training project cost, up to a maximum of $100,000. Right now, it's important to remember that the program is out of funding. However, the program keeps accepting preliminary applications or expressions of interest, if you will. The reason they do it is that because they will get funding eventually. We hope they will be funded next fiscal year. That starts after April. And when that happens, they would notify everyone, first of all, who submitted preliminary applications. If you're not in a hurry and you can wait with your skills training project, we encourage you to and secure your spot in the line. When the program gets back again, they will give you a call, they will send an opportunity. Now let's talk about software implementations. By the way, not just software, it could be also hardware. And one federal opportunity that is hugely important, it's called Canadian Agricultural Partnership. Although it has a name of agricultural in it, it does not mean that it's only for farmers. It's also if your business is in one of the sectors and you are in Canada, then chances are you qualify for this program. The intake dates vary though from province to province, and what you can cover through the program is the cost, 35% of the cost of software, hardware, customization, consulting fees, advisor fees related to the software implementation, as well as implementation time and cost, including your labor and including the training. So it's a pretty lucrative opportunity. Depending on your province, you can check the next intake. We can help you out as well. And if this is something that you wanted to do, you can get up to $100,000. Another program is for automotive industry. It's also important to remember that it's not for how to say, large OEM plants, like, Ford plant, GM plant, whatnot. It's for small to medium-sized producers that make parts for the automotive, for the cars, sorry, and located in Ontario. The primary focus of this program is on software and hardware as well. However, you can also use this money to complete a lean implementation project and improve skills of your employees significantly. The program provides 50% of the project expenses up to a maximum of 100,000. The intake is currently closed, but we expect it to be announced in spring 2021. Now, with regards to research and development, as I mentioned in the introduction, it's probably the largest opportunity in terms of dollars. Two most popular programs in this area are IRAP, Industrial Research Assistance Program, which is a grant for small businesses, typically tech-driven businesses or manufacturers that have a particular product development or product improvement goal involving R&D processes, experimentation on the, say, different compositions of the product, maybe different compositions of the chemicals or anything of this nature. Sometimes new software as well, although it's not a focus of the program. The program is a grant that you apply first, then you get it approved, then you start incurring your labor cost or your material or subcontractors cost, and the program will reimburse you those costs on a monthly basis. Important for your cash flow, a good one for your cash flow, but unfortunately, in many cases, R&D is more unpredictable, and it's very hard to come up with an R&D project with a certain scope that you understand. You can kind of run out of that scope or run out of the budget on R&D project very easily. So in that case, there's another program. I think most of the listeners are familiar with that, at least heard of that, called the SR&ED tax credit, or Scientific Research and Experimental Development Tax Credit. The eligibility criteria is pretty simple. You have to be Canadian controlled corporation, and must conduct certain scientific research and experimentation activities at your facility. Now, when somebody tells you research and development, what do you think of? Like, I imagine immediately a lab, like a university lab, with tubes and liquids bubbling in those tubes, so something like that. Fortunately, it's not. You don't have to be as scientific to qualify for this. Now, you can be. Don't get me wrong, especially if you're in, say, chemical manufacturing or maybe beverage, or you have a brewery. Sometimes you literally have to have bubbling liquids around you to come up with a new product. But it's more. This program is more down to earth. If you create a new product or improve a new product, or say production process or whatever other process that may be, and you don't know when you start what are the kind of tools and methods that you need to implement in order to develop that new product. Yeah? So in other words, you have to always experiment, and the result of your experiment is not known when you started the experiment. So that means most of the software development, app development is also eligible, because, well, if we have tech companies on the call on here, then better than me that in many cases you just bump into the roadblocks, and you have to creatively find some workarounds to make your app work. If you qualify, though, you can get 60% of your labor cost, 40% of your material cost, and 30% of your contractor's cost, up to a maximum of $3 million per fiscal year. That means that there's pretty much no limit, which is good compared to the grants. The grants, they always have the limit. Well, SHRED has a limit of 3 million, but come on, it's a lot. Let's now talk about export development. I mentioned that it's a priority for the government to help Canadian businesses diversify and sell more internationally. The top choice program here for this purpose is Can Export. It's a program for all Canadian businesses anywhere in the country that were in the business for at least a year and that have less than 500 employees. To qualify, the companies have to choose the new export markets for them for the purposes of the application, where they don't have significant sales already. And when it comes to our closest neighbor, United States, there is a special rule. For the purpose of the program, the United States is not considered as the one export market. They actually broke the US down into 4 regions, literally east, west, north, and south, and allocate certain states to each region. That means, in simple words, that if you already have a client in the state of New York, but now you want to start promoting your product in the state of California, even though you already sell in the United States, for the purpose of this program, your market in California will count as the new export market. So you will be able to get this funding for pretty much your sales and marketing expenses in the other market, translation, certain compliance expenses, for example, trademark applications, certifications in the foreign market. When we had better times before COVID, this program also covered a portion of the international travel, portion of the cost of the trade shows and trade missions. Those were very expensive, if you can remember. For now, the program does not cover those activities because of travel restrictions and because, quite frankly, most of them are canceled. However, the program pays for the expenses who are exhibiting or participating in the online or virtual trade shows or virtual conferences. Any opportunity with any event, online or offline, where you can promote your company, promote your business to the international audience is eligible. Online advertising, by the way, is also eligible. But again, keep in mind that it's only for new export market. So going to our example with the state of California, if you wanted to run a Google ad campaign targeting businesses or consumers in California, then a portion of your expenses may be covered through the program. And the maximum at this time is $75,000. With regard to hiring, there's actually quite a lot of different hiring grants. It could be grant, it could be tax credits, but anyways, the one commonality between all of them is that you have to look for the person under 30 years old. Chances are that for that young person, there are certain hiring grants depending on the position that you're looking to hire that person for. Also depending on the client status, educational status of the applicant. There are different programs for students, for graduates, for master, PhD kind of level students and graduates. So I wouldn't overload you with information about hiring grants, but I wanted just to one thing to remember about them is that it's for hiring folks under 30 years old. Business expansion, another purpose of the funding, my favorite, because it's I'm so excited when we write applications for those complex projects, interesting projects, and also they result in huge impact to the economy and to the local community. Those large-scale expansion grants and loans are provided either by provincial governments. For example, Ontario government has 3 different programs for each region outside GTA. If your business is located anywhere north of Newmarket, west of Hamilton, or east of Oshawa, you may qualify for the expansion grants or expansion loans from the provincial government. But on top of that, you may also qualify for the federal interest-free loans are provided by the federal government and their specific agencies and corporations that they assign. So if that's the case, then you can double dip, and it's not actually double dipping; it's totally fine. You can get up to 15% of your expansion budget from the Ontario government, plus 35% in the form of interest-free loan from the federal government. So in total, you can have up to 50% of your project expenses covered in a combination of grants and loans from different levels of government. Other provinces have a much simpler structure than Ontario. They have a regional development corporation, a regional federal development corporation, I should correct myself. And depending on where you are, you may be eligible for the expansion loan provided by your federal development corporation. The intake dates and program names sometimes vary from the agency to agency, but by all means, let us know if you are planning expansion, and we'll be happy to recommend you the best program suitable for your specific expansion goals and specific location. Because even if, for example, if you are a company based in the Greater Toronto area, technically speaking, you cannot take advantage of these grants and loans if you are expanding your facility in Toronto or suburbs of Toronto. But what if you expand in Niagara region, for example, or Bradford or Barrie? Right? All those regions will qualify. Quickly about temporary COVID-19 relief subsidies. Most of you probably are familiar with those, but just to remind you what's available. Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy provides 75% of the labor cost up to a certain maximum of $847 per week per employee. If you have eligible drop in sales this year compared to last year, a certain period. Similarly, if you have a drop in sales, you may qualify for a rent subsidy. Of course, if you rent a facility or a place, you can get up to 90% of your rent expenses covered through the rent subsidy. Ontario Small Business Support Grant that is provided to those businesses that were hit the most. And I noticed that the slides is coming soon. It's already available. So Ontario government provides those grants, typically to the hardest hit businesses like restaurant, retail, service businesses like haircut, nail salons, whatnot. So you can apply for that one and get it. Canada Emergency Business Account is an interest-free loan of up to $60,000 provided by most of Canadian banks and credit union. Although it's a federal money, the banks are partnering with the government to channel this money. $60,000 is good, but it may not be enough for your business. And if you keep struggling, if your sales are still down, if you applied for every single program on this list, but it still doesn't help you much, there's a last resort for you. Regional Relief and Recovery Fund. It's an interest-free loan of up to $1 million, and is provided by the federal development corporations across the country. Quickly about the application process and how it looks like. First of all, you have to clearly understand, have a project that you want to fund, for example, skills training, or your marketing in the export market. Then you research the government program and select the appropriate government program, whether it's a grant or a loan or a tax credit. You typically need to get the quotes from your vendors, being it a training vendor or software vendor, or your marketing company, digital marketing company. You have to use the quotes or proposals in order to forecast how much money you'll need and for the application. Then you gather information, all the documentation, write the application, and submit it. And after the submission, you also are positive and hope for the best result for the approval. Once the approval comes in, your job is to keep on promise, execute your project at best of your abilities, and keep the government keep the government abreast of your project development. You have to write claims and reports throughout your project to make sure that the government knows what you're doing. And also, in many cases, you only get money after you submit the claims. You rarely get money just right away after approval. It's very rare. Happens, but very rare. In terms of assessment process, it was a good question of what the government is looking for. Right? What are those kind of triggers that help the government to select your grant application or loan or tax credit application versus others? First of all, every program has different criteria, but in general, the government is looking for the growth. Like when they invest taxpayers' money in your company, they want to see your growth, and they also want to see some track record of your previous growth. They want to make sure that you have the expertise and capabilities to do the project that you promised, and that you are also committed financially to the project. As you have seen, there's no grant or no government funding program that provides 100% of the budget. Only non-profit grants provide percent of the budget. But when it comes to all for-profit grants and tax credits, you always get a portion of your budget. You never get 100%. So you also have to be financially capable of performing your project. What else can help you to maximize chances for success? Obviously, understanding assessment criteria. Every program has different focus. For example, sometimes contradictory, believe it or not, because some programs for productivity improvement, they don't want you to hire more people. Like, it's a paradox, but that's how some of them work. You're supposed to be more productive with your existing number of employees, and yeah, maybe later you will hire somebody, but it's just not something that the productivity improvement program is looking for. Job creation is definitely something that the government wants, especially in distressed areas of the country. And they also want you to grow them, more sales, new products, more R&D. Specifically, if you can export your product after your project is completed, then that's even better. Right? And respect the rules. The programs frequently have deadlines. There are certain eligibility criteria that you have to understand. Stacking, that means applying for multiple programs for the same project. It is possible. However, there are certain limits. You cannot go over 50% funded of the project cost funded by several programs, or sometimes 75%. So those rules also are in place, and they are important, because you don't want to pay the money back to the government. Don't start the project before you get the approval. This is the golden rule for government grants and loans. It does not apply for tax credits, but just keep in mind, if you apply for a grant or loan, better not to start your project and not to pay the money to any vendor. And make sure that you report timely, because again, the government wants to know where you are and what you do. As a final note, I want to tell you about our book. This book is not the list of grants and loans and tax credits, because those lists always change. Literally every year we have a new name or new programs coming up, or the old programs coming down. This book is about your funding strategy, how you identify your funding needs, how you determine the right projects to fund, and also contains the tips from funders and writers on increasing chances for success of your application, and also the examples of the best answers to the questions in the application forms. Those who are interested may order the book at our website, fginc.ca/getfunded, or it's also available on Amazon and most popular in all popular bookstores, Google and Apple bookstores as well. And it is now time for questions and answers. Just one last thing before we dive into the questions. On our website, we have a free eligibility check form. if you are interested to at least know what government programs are available for your business, please go ahead and submit your eligibility check form. And the information that you will provide is enough for us to at least determine what's available for you now and what you can apply for. And then, of course, it's your choice. You can do it yourself, or you can do it with us. We'll be happy to help you out. And I hope I was able to explain, why it's better to go with the professional agencies like Fair Grant Writing. And I look forward to the questions and your submissions.
Hello, Igor. Thank you so much. In the chat window, you can see the questions by the people attending. Just click on the chat window on the right. You see the questions there? Let me read it to you. Is there a grant which can help cover legal expenses and for trademarking?
Yes, however, only those legal and trademark expenses in the export market. If you apply for the trademark in Canada, unfortunately, there's no grant for that.
Okay. Next one, grants for purchasing equipment and cost of leasing space. Would you comment on that?
Yeah, perfect question. Once in a while, there are grants available for equipment purchasing and upgrade. At this time, not everywhere in Canada and even not everywhere in Ontario, these grants are in place. If you are in the Greater Toronto area or Ottawa, the city of Ottawa, unfortunately, there is nothing for you at the moment. However, if you are outside those regions, there are certain programs that can help you out with purchasing equipment. Not the leasing space though, because leasing is considered your operational expense, and the government does not provide funding for operational expenses. But equipment, sure. Depending on your location, there may be an opportunity.
Got it. Now, for new startups, is there any kind of grant opportunity to basically get the money for printing the business cards, advertising material, and all of that?
Right. There are a couple of opportunities that we're not necessarily focused as the company on those, just because those opportunities are quite small. They typically are limited to $5,000, and the application is very straightforward. So you as a startup, you don't need to pay anyone to do that. So there are the program is called Starter. Wait a second. What's the name of it? The Starter. There we go. Starter Company. Starter Company or Starter Company Plus. So Starter Company is for youth, and Starter Company Plus is for everyone. If you are a startup, then you can apply for this program, and you will be on the hook for some coaching sessions provided by local and municipal business development agencies. And then upon your successful completion of this coaching, you will get a grant of up to $5,000. To kickstart, it will be enough for you to do your website, to do your business cards. So that should be enough. Now, with startups, it's always a fine line, if you will, because technically speaking, for most of the government grants, sizable grants, you have to be in business for at least a year, or in many cases 2 years, just to prove the government that this business, worth investing into. Right? However, if you are, let's say, a tech startup, and you can attract the investors and get some, say, venture capital money, angels money, you can apply, assuming that you have the term sheets with those, say, venture or venture capital funds or angel funds. By default, if you are a startup that pays salaries to the owners of the startups or to the employees, and you are developing something, especially many tech startups are developing something, then a SR&ED tax credit program will be your solution as well.
Great. Thank you. Next question from Irina. Are there any funds available if Ontario Corporation is planning to open a sales office in British Columbia?
Mm-hmm. In this case, good question. In this case, we'll have to double check what British Columbia, province of British Columbia, has for supporting local economies. British Columbia is also a very diverse place economically. For example, there's Greater Vancouver and Victoria area, and then there are all those distressed parts of the province, economically distressed parts of the province that were hit by certain issues with forestry industry and natural resource industry. So depending on where you will be moving, will be locating your facility in British Columbia, you may be able to get one of those regional incentives to hire local people.
Okay. There is a question from Sivaram. How do you guys charge for your services?
Good question. It always comes up during the webinars. We don't disclose publicly our prices, so we welcome you to fill out eligibility check form. If you qualify and if there's something we can help you with, then we'll give you the quote individually. So by all means, feel free to apply to submit the form. There's no obligation for you when you send your inquiry to us.
Okay, that seems to be all the questions. I just wanted to add one more thing. Maybe you guys are aware of it, but since Monday there is another program which became available on federal level. It's called Highly Affected Sector Credit Availability Program. It's a HASCAP.
Mm-hmm.
It's can you comment on that?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's one of those temporary COVID-related, not subsidies, but the loans. The program is channeled through the regular commercial banks and credit unions. So first of all, if you are interested in this program, you need to talk to your bank account manager. With regard to the terms of the program, it's a loan, although again provided by the banks, but is guaranteed by the crown corporations like BDC and EDC. And in the event if something goes wrong with your highly affected business, then those corporations will apparently have to pay the loan back. Also, the good thing about this loan is that it's the fixed interest rate of 4%, and the repayment period is up to 10 years. The deadline, though, is June 30th. So, by all means, if you're highly affected, highly impacted business, such as retail, restaurant, and pretty much any other business that was hit hard during pandemic, talk to your banker ASAP and submit the application.
All right. Okay. If there are no more questions, I would like to thank you, Igor, for a very informative presentation. And before we sign off, I would like to remind everybody that the recording of this seminar is available on YouTube channel, so you can watch it anytime if you would like to rewatch it, or you can forward it to a friend who wasn't able to attend it at this time. If you'd like to get notified when it is posted and hear about upcoming seminars, please sign up for a newsletter on our website, youraccounting.cloud. And you are welcome. Get in touch with us to get help on planning your business finances or make the most out of your new funding. Our website is, again, youraccounting.cloud. Link is posted in the chat. Thank you so much again, Igor, and the team of Fair Grant Writing for the great presentation. Thanks a lot, and goodbye.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you everyone who attended today.